fourth video of the day on Saints Now by Chat Sports because we are stone cold hustlers. My name is Trizzy Trace Girouard. Be sure to subscribe and hit the thumbs up icon because the Saints have released their initial 53-man roster and the full list of cuts. So we're going to go through all of that and we're going to react to each move. And for what it's worth, friendly reminder, this is the initial 53-man roster. There's still a lot of changes that could come, and I do expect some changes still to happen. Now, if you're excited for real football to get underway, week 1 around the corner, Saints versus Cardinals, Spencer Rattler starting. And if you're not an NFL guy and you're not excited about the Saints, well, college football is back, baby. And if you're pumped up, it's the best time of the year. Hit the thumbs up icon. Can we get 500 crazy Saints fans to like this video? Why not? Let's start off with the roster cuts. First move I want to discuss is Jake Haener. Obviously, he has been released. We broke this down earlier on the channel. But Jake Haener, this is now a QB battle between two players. And it's really not much of a battle because Kellen Moore has named Spencer Rattler to be the starting guy. Jake Haener, I do think could return on the practice squad, but ultimately we'll have to see what his future or what lies in his future. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I think that he is a shoo-in to return on the practice squad as well. Marcus Yarns, Trayton Welch, Seth Green, Michael Jacobson, a couple tight ends have been moved, and then Moochie Dixon, Roderick Daniels, and Kevin Austin in the wide receiver room, as well as Dante Pettis. We'll talk about him in a moment. Offensive line, Josiah Ezerim, 7th-round pick last year. He has been waived. Kyle Hergel, a UDFA guard out of Boston College who's been pretty good at times. He's shown flashes. He ends up getting cut. Same with Shane Lemieux, Easton Kilty. Isaiah Foskey, a name that is a guy that we've all been waiting to get released, to be totally honest. A player that we were all very hopeful for, coming out of Notre Dame, being the all-time sack leader for the Fighting Irish, just hasn't worked out in New Orleans. So the Saints made the move that a lot of people were wanting to happen, but didn't know if they had the stones to do it. They proved they did. Yashin Davis, I think, is a prime candidate to return on the practice squad. But Rico Payton, if he can recover from his injury as well, I think he is a player who could go ahead and make the roster. Dallas Beanham, DeMarco Jackson, Tareem Powell, Jaden Peavy are some of the other players that have been cut. And for special teams, Charlie Smith loses to Blake Grupe in the kicker battle for the second year in a row. James Burnip was released, meaning Kai Kroger is your starting punter as of right now. And then the last few cuts, 34 total, Fadil Diggs. He has been released. I think he is a prime player to bring back on the practice squad. Jaden Price, the white cornerback, I called him Vanilla Ice. He has now been cut. Nephi Sewell and Dante Pettis. I think that, honestly, any of these four guys could be brought back on the practice squad because I think all of these players offered some value outside of just what they're asked to do. I think they're special teams players. I think they offer some other useful traits. So Fadil Diggs is the name that I'm keeping my eyes on, but I think that all four of these players could return to New Orleans on the practice squad. A few more roster moves before we get to the 53-man roster. 3 players placed on IR. Defensive tackle John Ridgeway dealing with a pectoral injury. He has been placed on IR, and he is designated to return. If you are placed on injured reserve at this point, you can still return after about 4 weeks. Barry Wesley, same thing with him. He is designated to return. Landon Young, however, he has been placed on IR. I believe his season is over. He suffered an ankle injury and was carted off against the Broncos. 2 players on the PUP list, 2 tight ends. Taysom Hill, he's recovering from a torn ACL. Foster Moreau, he is recovering from a knee injury. This also means they are ineligible to return they have to wait 4 weeks to return is what I'm trying to say. So these players will not miss out on the entire season, but they are on the physically unable to perform list, which doesn't really come as a shocker. If you've been subscribed to the channel, you would know that this was probably going to happen. Now coming up, we're going to talk about the 53-man roster. Going to go through every position, the depth charts, starters, backups, third string, everything in between, because that's my promise. I guarantee you are going to get the most informative, entertaining, and awesome Saints content in the whole wide world here at Saints Now by Chat Sports. But today's episode would not have been made possible if it weren't for our awesome friends over at Prize Picks. And if you're sitting here saying, Trizzy, what the heck is Prize Picks? Let me tell you all about it. It's daily fantasy sports made easy, and football is underway. College football is here, so don't miss out on any of the action this season on Prize Picks. Prize Picks is a fun and simple way to test your ball knowledge and turn it into cold, hard cash. You just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and if you get your picks right, you could cash in and win up to 2,000 times your money. That is not a typo. 2,000 times your cheddar. I want to go ahead and put down some money on college football. Two potential Saints quarterbacks of the future. Might as well have a little bit of fun. Both have very, very exciting matchups in week 1. Ohio State versus Texas. I'm going to take more for Arch Manning just to have one touchdown. That's definitely free money. Garrett Nussmeier. I'm going to take the less on his passing yards. We all know, I'm not trying to be rude, LSU week 1 tends to struggle. So I'm going to try and make some money on these two college football games, and you can too if you click the link in the comments and description of this video for Prize Picks. It's also the best way to get in on the action on sports in more than 40 states, including California, Texas, Florida, and Georgia. So join millions of users and sign up today. Download the Prize Picks app and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. All that information is in the comments and description. Shout out to Prize Picks. Run your game. Let's start off quarterbacks. You have two quarterbacks. Tyler Shough, Spencer Rattler. Rattler is QB1. Tyler Shough is QB2. Not really any surprising moves there. We did break this down in full detail. It's linked in the comments and description of this video. Just check out the most recent channel. You'll see Spencer Rattler, Tyler Shough, Kellen Moore on the thumbnail. I gave my full reaction, my full thoughts and analysis on that. But ultimately, Rattler was named QB1 today for a very good reason. Kellen Moore deciding to err with experience and to side with a player who has seen football at a professional level more than just in the preseason. And Rattler got a lot of praise from Kellen Moore, saying that he had to deal with a lot of adversity, and he's shown time and time again that he can respond well to that adversity. So ultimately, that is why the QB1 will be Spencer Rattler for week 1. But I do expect Tyler Shough to get some starts this season as well. In the running back room, not really many surprises here. Obviously, Alvin Kamara is your RB1. Kendre Miller, he earned that RB2 role. He's been really impressive throughout this summer and this preseason. Devin Neal, no chance he was going to make it through waivers. Good decision to keep him around, although he had been dealing with a hamstring injury for the past few weeks. I'm really, really excited about his future. Velus Jones, a special teamer. That is why I believe he made his spot on the roster, because he can contribute on special teams. He was a kick returner. He was a punt returner. He produced on the offensive side of the football. So by no means am I saying he is great at everything, but you can do a little. You're not great at everything, but you can do a little bit of all of these things. And I think that that's a good trait to have, because if you can be versatile and you can be multiple, that is a theme of Kellen Moore's offense. Velus Jones, he displays that. Very fast player. That's why he made it on the roster. Wide receiver room. This is actually really not that surprising. Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, Brandin Cooks obviously are going to be your top 3 players. Ced Wilson, he returns on the depth chart. Wouldn't mind trying to swap him out for somebody different for what it's worth, but he does do a solid job when it comes to blocking. Mason Tipton makes the roster for the second year in a row. Devaughn Vele, the player the Saints traded for with the Denver Broncos, he also makes the roster. No surprises there. But I got to give a big-time shout-out to Big Play Tip. Mason Tipton made the 53-man roster as an undrafted free agent out of Yale last year, and he did it again this year. So I got to give a big shout-out to our preseason Prince. Hopefully, this is the year he can put it together and he can be a big contributor on the offense, because I believe that Spencer Rattler, Tyler Shough, whoever is going to be playing in each of these games is going to need to rely on their pass catchers, and Mason Tipton has proven to be a reliable target and a very effective player whenever he gets his opportunities. But I will say I need a big year from Chris Olave and a big year from Rashid Shaheed. Both of these players dealt with injuries last year. Both of these players, I think, are severely underrated, and I think that those two guys are going to be the key to success on the offensive side of the football outside of Alvin Kamara. So I want to see both of these players have big years. Chris Olave, let's get him back to 1,000 yards. Let's increase the touchdown production, and let's scheme up some plays for Rashid Shaheed to absolutely dust your least favorite team's opposing CB, whatever. I want to give Rashid Shaheed every opportunity to feast this year, because I think he is due for a massive season. Bulked up a little bit, put on some muscle too, which is awesome. Now I want you to answer this question for me. More yards, it feels like it's a pretty obvious one, Chris Olave. More touchdowns though. What do you think? Type their jersey number. Chris Olave, type 12. Rashid Shaheed, type 22. Lopez, I'm going to be honest, I don't know the answer to this one. That's why I'm going to have to ask you guys. So get in the comment section. Try to convince me one way or the other. The tight end room, this is where things might be really frustrating. You look at this and you're like, what the fuck is this? I get it. I don't blame you. Juwan Johnson signed a 3-year, $30 million contract. Jack Stoll brought in free agency. Moliki Matavao, 7th-round pick. None of those three guys are somebody that jumps off the screen at you. But for the tight end room, obviously remember Taysom Hill, Foster Moreau on the PUP list. They can return after 4 weeks. Juwan Johnson, however, his role, regardless if Foster Moreau is around or not, is going to be big. They signed him to a lucrative contract. For what it's worth, it's very average tight end money, but they signed him to a very expensive contract, averaging $10 million a year. Can he be consistently productive? Can he get hot and then stay hot? I don't want to see him start hot and then tank down, or start really, really slow and then finish the year on a high note. That's been the theme of Juwan Johnson, and quite frankly, that needs to change because the Saints offense is going to rely heavily on Juwan Johnson. Considering there's not a lot of size in the pass-catching department, Juwan Johnson will be a big, big target, not just like literally and physically, but I think that he will be schemed up for a lot of plays in Kellen Moore's offense. We know Kellen Moore loves the tight end position, and I think Juwan Johnson needs to have a big year to prove that that contract that he was paid was worth the cheddar. Let's go to the trenches offensive line here. The starting O-line, no surprises here. That has been set for a long, long time. But the New Orleans Saints did bring in Asim Richards today. They traded for him. I provided a video with a full breakdown, a full reaction. So go check it out on the channel. But if you just want to quickly see the trade compensation, you want to get to know the player a little bit better, I encourage you to check out the video. Here's just the trade compensation. Asim Richards and a 2028 7th-round pick. In return, the Cowboys get a 2028 6th-round pick. Crazy we're trading away picks in 2028, but nonetheless, here we are. It was a move that the Saints needed to do because the Saints were lacking offensive line depth. And for what it's worth, not saying that the Saints had to go trade for this specific player, but you needed to add offensive line depth. That is no question about it. There is no question about it. Luke Fortner, Toricelli Simpkins, he makes the roster as well. Luke Fortner was the player the Saints traded Colin Saunders for with the Jacksonville Jaguars a couple weeks ago. Mickey Loomis is foaming at the mouth to make more trades. Now, when it comes to the offense, was not thrilled because the offense just wasn't very productive throughout the preseason. They had 3 touchdowns throughout 3 games. That's not good. 1 of which came from Spencer Rattler, 2 of which came from Tyler Shough. Shough had 1 passing and 1 rushing touchdown. Hopefully that changes. Hopefully with the starters being on the field, the offense can have more firepower, and quite frankly, fingers crossed, Kellen Moore hid everything in his offense and kept it under wraps throughout the preseason because I fear that this may be a little bit of a tough situation for the offense. Just going to call it. Defensively, really, really excited, though. Let's talk about the edge rushing group. So we're going to split up the defensive line into the edge rushers and then into the interior defensive linemen. Chase Young, Cam Jordan, Carl Granderson, Chris Rumph, those are going to be your your edge rushers. I think Chase Young and Carl Granderson will get more rotational run and be the starters technically, but Cam Jordan, obviously, he's going to have a bigger role for the New Orleans Saints defense. Last year kind of took a backseat because Todd Grantham is a terrorist, but you'll notice no Fidel Diggs. Chris Rumph beat him out for that spot. I do believe Fidel Diggs is a very, very prime practice squad candidate. He was very impressive throughout the summer. He was really good as a 7th-round pick out of Syracuse, and I think that he has a lot of upside. Chris Rumph ultimately edges out Fidel Diggs, I believe, because of that experience. But I do think when it comes to Diggs, he is definitely a player the Saints are going to want to keep as long as he makes it through waivers. The defensive interior, let's take a look there. Nathan Shepard, Brian Brzee, those are going to be the outside interior guys, if that makes sense. And then Devaughn Godshaw will be your nose tackle. Christian Boyd will back up Devaughn Godshaw. Vernon Broughton will be in the mix as well, and so will Jonathan Bullard. And I can tell you right now, I've seen so many reports, I've seen so much hype, I've seen so much praise for Devaughn Godshaw, and I just got to say I'm so excited to watch him line up. A lot of the reports have been how strong, how physical, how much presence physically he takes up on the line. He commands multiple blockers. He eats up the offensive line. He shuts down and closes off running lanes. Like, I'm really, really pumped to watch Devaughn Gotcha. I think that is an underrated addition to this defensive line group, and I think that he could be a key factor in the success in the defensive line, making a push to get into the backfield and create havoc for not just the opposing quarterbacks, but the running backs as well. Let's move back a little bit, go to the linebacker room. I got to say, shout out to Brandon Staley and Kellen Moore. This was not an easy room to make cuts in. No chance you're moving Pete Werner, Demario Davis. That's a fact. But you had a lot of quality depth. But the three guys who end up making it, Danny Stutzman, the rookie out of Oklahoma, we are dirty little stuts on this channel. Isaiah Stallbird, big fan of his. He had a massively impressive preseason. And Jalen Ford, second-year player out of Texas. I just know it had to have been tough to make these roster cuts, especially in the linebacker room, because that is a really, really talented squad with some high-end depth and some low-end talent. That's really, really hard to just give away and give up and cut. So, got to give credit to Kellen Moore and Brandon Staley for making some tough decisions here. I think they made the right decisions. I like keeping around Isaiah Stallbird. I like keeping around Jalen Ford. And y'all know how I feel about Danny Stutzman. Love him on the Saints defense. Cornerbacks, not too much change here. The only really shocking move, I guess you could call it, would be Rico Payton not making the roster, and last chance you legend Rajon Wright does make the roster. Kellen Moore reporting a couple of days ago that Rico Payton would be out for 2 to 3 weeks with an injury. And so Rajon Wright ultimately, I believe, won over that roster spot because of the fact that Rico Payton was waived with an injury designation. Quincy Riley will be the backup to Kool-Aid McKinstry. Ugo Amadi will be back in the nickel's position behind Alontae Taylor. And when it comes to the Saints defense, you may look at this screen and be like, wow, Kool-Aid McKinstry, that's a big player. He needs to have a huge year this year. Alontae Taylor needs to have a huge year this year. Isaac Yiadom, Quincy Riley, these guys, it would be really nice to have a big year. But I think the one player who has the most to prove in the cornerback room is Alontae Taylor. And hopefully he can return from his groin injury soon, because he's supposed to have a new and expanded role in Brandon Staley's scheme. He's going to have a star-type role, similar to how Jalen Ramsey was used in that Rams defense years ago. Think about that, but for Alontae Taylor. Obviously, I'm not calling them the same player, but I am saying you can use that as inspiration and use that kind of as a reference of how will Alontae Taylor be used this year. He should have a much bigger role. He has a lot to prove this year. Hopefully he can return from his injury soon. Shout out to groin injuries. Always causing problems, man. Justin Reed, he's going to be your starting safety next to Julian Blackmon, and I got to give a lot of credit to Blackmon because he did a great job of being signed late after Tyrann Mathieu retires and then winning over that starting job over Jordan Howden and Jonas Sanker. Rookie pick out of Virginia. Jonas Sanker, second, third-year player. Jordan Howden, he was a late-round selection. JT Gray, he's your special teams ace, so no shockers there. But I can tell you confidently, I believe that Justin Reed and Julian Blackmon are an upgrade from last year's safety starters, which were Tyrann Mathieu and Will Harris. That doesn't mean I didn't like those players. By no means am I disrespecting those players. You will not be able to recreate what Tyrann Mathieu did for your team, for your city, for your state, for the locker room, on the field, off the field. You will not be able to replicate that, so please don't take it as I'm disrespecting these players. But I can tell you, I think in terms of the football player, Justin Reed and Julian Blackmon is an upgrade as a duo in Tyrann Mathieu and Will Harris. Special teams, special plays, special players. Blake Grupe, congratulations. You are the Saints kicker once again. Kai Kroger, that's another new punter in New Orleans. Beats out James Burnip, the UDFA the Saints signed out of Alabama. And Zach Wood, shout out to him. Long snapper. No changes there. I will remind you that this is the initial 53-man roster. There's still a lot of changes that could be made. The Saints reportedly were interested in trading for a punter with Pittsburgh. Crazy if you ask me to trade for a punter. That being said, I do think the Saints could still look to bring in a new one. If they were already exploring that option, to me that tells me they like Kai Kroger, they don't love Kai Kroger, or they at least feel like they could benefit from upgrading from Kai Kroger. So ultimately, a lot of changes still could happen. Punter is one to keep an eye on. Tight end is another room to keep an eye on. And then, offensive line, defensive line, there's always shakeups going on over there. Now, how good is the Saints roster? I want you to get like you are playing Madden. Scale 1 to 99. 99, one of the best teams in the league. 1, they're dog shit. I want you to share your thoughts and get in the comment section and let me know. Appreciate you guys for rocking and rolling with us today. It was a crazy day full of news dumps. 4 videos, 2 or 3 shorts. I mean, we provided so much content on the channel. And if you want to get caught up with the New Orleans Saints and the latest that happened, you can get all of this information that happened in one day in less than 60 minutes if you watch all of our videos over the next few minutes if you have some time to kill. So get informed, get updated, and y'all stay golden. We'll see you next time.